You know, a bride reached out to her photographer about 2 years after the wedding. She was looking for some specific photographs that included members of her family. So the photographer looked for the images and discovered about half of the wedding files were missing. She searched every drive, every folder, every place she could think of to look. The photographs the bride wanted were gone. What happens to your images immediately after a session may determine whether they are still there when someone needs them. In this lesson, we're going from card to confidence. Hi there, Lens Legends. Welcome to another episode of the Portrait Profit Show, where we focus on the business side of photography. I'm Jim Landers, your host, your guide on the business side. The Portrait Profit Show is brought to you by Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School. For Digital Pro Lab, Amanda and her just amazing, wonderful team are going to make you look like a hero. Amanda hires just fantastic people, and just by default, everything is great. Everyone is friendly. You're going to love working with Digital Pro Lab. So recommend that you go to their website right now, if you haven't already, and see the difference that Digital Pro Lab can make. Go to digitalprolab.com. You're going to be impressed. digitalprolab.com. The show is also sponsored by Landers Photography School. That's my company. I teach both the photography side and the business side. I've been doing a lot more on the business side lately and thoroughly enjoy it. But of course, I like both sides. But I want you to reach out to me because I want to give you a little bit of my time, because I want to help you reach your goals. All you have to do is send me an email, jim@portraitprofits.com, jim@portraitprofits.com. And we're going to talk about how to help you reach your goals, jim@portraitprofits.com. Now, I want to encourage you to make comments throughout this lesson today and ask questions. And speaking of comments, I want you to go to the comment section right now and enter in hashtag live, letting me know that you are watching right now on either Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. We're simulcast to several different places on each one of those platforms. So let me know you're watching live by entering hashtag live. Now, if you're watching the replay, enter in hashtag replay. I also request that you share the Portrait Profit Show. Let other people know that this show exists, that there is someone out there who's trying to help. How many times have you heard someone say, man, I wish there was someone who would help me? Well, I'm doing it every single week. All you have to do, show up. So there's no excuse for saying, I wish someone would help me. I'm doing it every week. I'm dedicating 10, 12 hours of my time and not charging you a penny. All I ask is that you share the Portrait Profit Show. And there's a button for that. If you're watching on Facebook, just click the share button. Or if you know someone who would be interested, hit the @ symbol and then their name, and they will get a direct message, not a DM specifically, but they'll get a message saying that you're suggesting they watch the Portrait Profit Show. So share the Portrait Profit Show. A photographer recently shared a painful experience. It was the first wedding she had ever photographed. When the bride contacted her to ask for some specific photographs, she discovered that only a part of the images appeared to have been saved to her hard drive. She searched through every drive and folder she could, but the requested photographs were just plain missing. Now you can imagine how the photographer felt. You can also imagine what those photographs must mean to the bride. The photographer had charged a very low price because it was her first wedding job. And maybe that tells us something about how little she understood at the time about the work and responsibility she was accepting. Maybe. But the responsibility remains the same at every price. It's not relevant because a wedding cannot be repeated. We photographers have a huge responsibility to handle our work with care. And until that moment, this photographer believed she had. Her difficult experience gives us a wonderful opportunity to examine what happens to our photographs immediately after we make them. By the way, if you're an amateur, you take pictures. If you are a if you're serious about photography, you make or create images. You don't take them. Besides, I don't know that that's correct English anyway. You have to have something in existence before you can take it. So if you're taking a photograph, maybe there's one already on the wall and you're taking it off the wall. Then it would be correct English. You know, when we're thinking about photography and the processes that we go through, we often think about photography processes in its visible stages. The ones we see, the even fewer that our clients see. We plan the session, we create the photographs, we prepare them, we help clients make decisions and deliver finished work. Between creation and preparation to show the images is an essential stage that clients never see. They don't know how much time you spend, they don't know how dedicated you are to go through this process. The photographs have been made, but they have not yet reached the safety of a dependable file system. They're on your card. There's additional steps. This is what I call the vulnerable handoff. The photographs do not move safely from the camera to the computer simply because you inserted a card, dragged a folder, or saw thumbnails appear on the screen. What you need is a series of deliberate steps, a procedure that tell you where the files belong, confirm that they arrived there, protect them in a separate location, not just on your hard drive or a NAS. We'll get to that. And establish when the card can be returned to service. Now, different people have different processes. This one's mine, and it is the one I recommend, of course. I don't recommend that you leave your images on the cards. I just don't recommend it. Besides, the prices have gone up on them, not to the prices that they used to be. It used to be $400 a gig. So, I mean, to me, they're still not that high. They're not. They are a higher price than ever than recent years, but they're nowhere near as expensive as they used to be when I switched to digital a quarter of a century ago. Didn't really think about it that way till just now. So let me show you a normal path that your images may take. And that's small. Let's put that a little bit larger. There we go. So the path is capture. It's where you've made the images. It's sitting now on the card. You copy those images from the card. You verify that they are where they're supposed to be. And then you would back up in addition to wherever you keep your images, a backup that could be on the cloud. We'll get to different places that can go. And then you clear the card. So 5 different actions that when we define them and consistently act on them, we create confidence for ourselves. There's a lot of places where we can improve our own confidence and not feel that feeling of unsurety or being lost. It's really up to us. So let's move into chapter 1, that vulnerable handoff. So at the end of each session, the memory card, it may hold the only copy of every photograph you just created. It is small enough to misplace. It is small enough to misplace. It's easy to damage, and it's intended to be formatted and used again. The card is an excellent capture medium, but it is a temporary home for your work. The process of moving photographs from the memory card into verified protected storage is commonly called an image ingestion workflow, or just simply ingest workflow. Now, I don't know if you've heard that before, but if you've done some reading on it, you have seen that before. Most of the time, we just call it importing because if you're using Lightroom, that's what Lightroom calls it. I'll come back to that. Capture comes before ingestion. Copying, then verifying, and then backing up. These things form the core of the process. And once those steps have been completed, the card can be cleared and returned to service. Now, several ordinary problems can interrupt ingestion. A transfer may stop before it finishes for some reason, or files may be copied into the wrong folder. I've done that one. Different cards can contain identical file names, which creates the possibility of one file replacing another. A file can also become corrupted, meaning that some of its data is damaged and the photograph may no longer open, or maybe it just doesn't display correctly. Every once in a while, I'll see someone post an image on Facebook or some other social media that's like a half of an image and the other half is gray or pink or green, and they're wondering what happened to their image. The image got corrupted. Drives can fail. Backup software can encounter an error that no one notices, so you don't solve it. A dependable ingest procedure is designed around 5 questions. First, did the camera record the photographs? Obviously, there's got to be something there to be able to move it. I just got a message saying that there's trouble sending the stream to Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook, will you let me know? I'm seeing this message here saying that it's having some difficulty sending to Facebook, and I want to confirm if that's true or not. Let me know that you're just say I'm watching on Facebook, or I'm seeing it in the comments section. And if you haven't already, enter in hashtag live. Hashtag live. I know at least one of you is watching on Facebook. I see 2. And now more. All right. So maybe it's just one of the locations that's having trouble. Give me a second while I look into that. I don't think it will take me long. You never know. All right. Yeah, it does look like it's having trouble on one of the places we're simulcasting to. It's actually the Portrait Profits show on the Facebook page for the Portrait Profit show. Looks like it's having difficulty receiving. And now it seems to be getting it. Nope, it's stopped. Darn. And I don't know how to fix that. And it's going to a weather channel. Thanks, Facebook. All right. Maybe I can reset it. Let's find out. Hmm. Well, I don't know how to fix that problem, and it's unfortunate, but hey, show must go on. Hopefully, there's hopefully you're um, hopefully you're still getting this. All right, so there's five. The ingest procedure is designed around five questions. First, did the camera record the photographs? The second is where will the primary working copy be stored? Meaning, the ones you're going to do artwork on later, retouching on later, you're going to be adjusting the images, enhancing the images. What's that location? Number three, how will you verify that every file arrived successfully? I mean, if you're photographing a headshot, you may not have a whole lot of images that you're uploading. But if you're photographing an event, you're probably going to have quite a few images. How do you know that every file arrives successfully? That's the third. The fourth is where will additional protected copy be stored? Where will you put that additional saved area? So a lot of people will save to the cloud. Some people will have two servers, but in different locations. Whatever your format is, we'll talk more about that because it's different situations are or different people have different situations and they're all correct. We just have to adjust for them. Number five, what must be confirmed before the card is formatted? So those questions help you build the procedure, the ingest procedure. They are not questions you should have to reconsider after every single session. Once the procedure is established, you simply follow it. You tweak it if you need to, but you just simply follow the procedure that you have for this post session process. Each completed step identifies the current status of the files and leads you into the next action. You no longer have to remember what you did or determine what remains to be done or decide whether the card is ready to be cleared. The procedure makes those decisions in advance. So give this procedure a permanent home in your procedure manual. Does everybody have a procedure manual? No. In fact, I rarely come across staffers with procedure manuals. Kind of a baseline thing, you guys. You need a procedure manual. And this procedure would be called image file management. You could call it ingest, but I like calling it image file management. You title it what you want. Its name is in workflow, but call it what you want. Number two, chapter two. There it is. This is capture. This is when you're creating the images. Protection begins in the camera. Begin building your image ingestion workflow with the decisions that must be made before you photograph the session. If your camera has two card slots, a lot of cameras have two card slots. Configure it to record each photograph to both cards. Every single photograph goes on both cards. This creates two copies at the moment of capture. Now, you'll need to check the camera settings to make sure that it's doing that because it may default to where it just sends it to one, and then once one finishes, the other starts. Once one fills, the other one starts filling. You don't want that. That setting provides additional capacity, but it does not create a second copy. Recording to two cards protects the photographs if one card fails. Now, is a card likely to fail? It isn't. But why risk it? Especially if you're photographing an event that can't be redone. So, yeah, you want to have both cards getting the same image. Maybe you send RAWs to one and JPEGs to the other. That's up to you, especially if you've got one card that's much smaller than the other. I can see that as being a viable option. But you're sending every time you create an image, it goes to both cards. It's recorded on both cards. So both cards remain in the same camera. All right. If they're in the same camera, that doesn't what that means is there are some vulnerabilities. So theft, loss, water damage, a severe impact, and other things could affect both copies at the same time. So yeah, there is a potential for concern there, but you need to think that through and create a path that's best for you. The second card adds useful protection during capture. It does not replace the copies you will create later. Broader protection begins during image ingestion workflow. So next, establish a card status system. Every card should have one of two unmistakable statuses. One is ready for use. The other is containing photographs awaiting ingestion. The ingestion process, not just the first step of it. You might use separate sections of a card wallet, not a money wallet, a card wallet, a memory card wallet. And you can turn used cards in a designated direction, maybe upside down, maybe backwards, just to signify this card has been used. It's ready for the ingestion workflow. Don't use it right now until it's gone through that process. Or choose some other visual signal that you would recognize immediately. Then decide where used cards will be placed as soon as they leave the camera. So that could be in that card wallet, but there's other places it could go. So give them one protected location rather than allowing them to move amongst your pockets or your camera bags, on a desk, other temporary places. Account for every card before leaving the location, so each one reaches the ingestion process. You ever lost a card? Oh, haven't, but knock on wood. Add these decisions to your written procedure. Write it all down. How will your camera use its card slots? How will you identify a card containing photographs that are awaiting ingestion? Where will used cards be placed? How will you account for every card before leaving the location? By the way, if you photograph in your own studio, I suppose you're not doing that in particular. But you understand the concept. So I want to move on to the next chapter. Before I do, if you haven't already, go to the comment section and enter in hashtag live. Hashtag live, letting me know that you're watching this show live right now. Chapter 3. There it is. Copy. Give every session a known destination. The next part of the procedure determines where the files will go. So begin by choosing the storage system that will hold the primary working copy of every session. This may be an internal hard drive in your computer, which I don't recommend. It could be an external working drive or a network attached storage, commonly called a NAS, and I always call it just NAS. A NAS is a storage device that computers can access through a network, and it's a redundant system. There's at least two identical. Well, I guess you could set it up however you want. Mine has 4 completely identical hard drives in it. So if one were to go bad, there's still 3 more that haven't. They're just fine. And yes, I've had NAS as part of my system for about 14 years, at least, maybe longer. And I have had 2 hard drives in it go bad during that time, which I guess isn't bad. But if I had only that one hard drive, I'd have lost everything. And the reason I got a NAS is because I did lose a hard drive and I did lose things on it. I don't recall now what it was, but it was somewhat of a traumatic experience. Sure, you can imagine. Mhm. So, a NAS is a storage device that computers can access through a network. Choose a system that fits the volume and speed of your work. Now choose the permanent location within that system. Establish a main folder for client work and decide how jobs will be organized beneath it. So you have a file structure. And the structure needs to be based on year, uh, job folder, name. Well, you might have the client folder look like maybe you have a folder on the top that says client work, and then you have the year. So this year right now is 2026, and then under that the the name of that job that you're doing. So if it's a family portrait, it would say either the year first, so that you can keep it in chronological order, or the name first, last name first, so that you can keep it in alphabetical order. That's up to you and your workflow. So I don't necessarily remember what year something happened in. So I do it by name, last name or company name, entity name. I do last name first, and then, so let's say it was Landers family. So Landers, but I have a system that goes before that that has PF, portrait, and then what type of portrait? Family, PF, Landers, and then the date. Now, if I am working with someone multiple times in a year, I write out the entire date. Otherwise, I might shorten it to just the year. Some families come back to us every single year, so therefore, and it's just once a year. So I just put 2026, Landers family 2026. You do what is ideal for you, and if you're just starting off, you don't necessarily know this. So I would recommend going with the name instead of the date first, but that's up to you. Create a naming formula that you're going to use every single time. The date, client name, session type, job number. If you do that, we used to do job numbers, and all possible elements. Choose only the information that's going to help you recognize and locate that job later. I mean, if you get to the point where you've got tens of thousands, we have photographed probably around 200,000 portrait sessions, but I've been doing this for a long time. Um, so, and now that's how many portraits we've created. We started off the first, 10, no, probably 20 years, doing school photography in addition to other things. So when I give you that number, that includes every individual that we have photographed, because each one of those is a portrait, but not each one of them is a job. It's possible that I photographed 500 portraits in one job. So you do it the way that is best for you. We used to do some high volume stuff, like school pictures is high volume. And over the past 15 years, we have, I think the last time we did a school was in 2010. So a good while back. But we had already been slowing that down well before that. So write the formula into your procedures so that you do not create a naming style for each session. You want to keep it consistent. Decide what belongs inside every job folder. You may want separate folders for original captures, working files, designs, exports, delivery photographs, or delivered photographs. Give each category a consistent name and location. If the job uses multiple cards, establish how the procedure will prevent identical camera-generated file names from replacing one another. Now, sometimes they just put that 01 or something at the end of it when it notices that. I want you to be paying attention to what happens there so that that never becomes a problem for you. Maybe you have a renaming method or formula during the import process. By the way, I call it import because I use Lightroom, and that is what Lightroom calls it, but it is an ingest process. Choose one method and use it consistently. Now, before relying on an import preset in Lightroom, confirm where Lightroom will place the original files and whether the files are being copied, moved, or simply referenced from their current location. You have those as an option. Your procedure should copy the files from the card and leave the originals there until verification and backup are complete. So add the following decisions to your image ingestion workflow. I've got a couple of questions that I want you to ask in your situation. Which storage system will hold the primary working copy? So if that's Lightroom, there you go. Where will the main client work folder be located? Mine is through Lightroom, but it actually resides on my NAS, which is just over there, a couple of 3 feet away from me. What formula will name each job folder? Again, for me, if it's a family portrait, it's PF because the category is portrait. The type is family. So PF, Landers, and then the year and maybe the entire date. That's how I choose to name my files. Which folders will be created inside every job? So I have the file that has everything in it, and then I have another file that I create of the working images and then the done images that are complete. Whatever needed to be done with those images is done. They are sitting there. And if they ask for it again, if it was a digital file, they ask for it again, it's there ready to go. I don't have to recreate that artwork. Or if it's a print, I can just reprint it from that folder. So which folders will be created inside every job folder? How will files from multiple cards be kept separate or renamed? Consider that. And then this last one is, which Lightroom import settings or other transfer settings are you going to use? Consistently write them down. Next is chapter 4. Verify is the main, this is the verify process, and that's confirm what you actually have. The files have reached their destination, but the procedure still needs a reliable way to confirm that the transfer succeeded. You don't want to open your files later and realize that only half of the image shows up and the other half is gray. How do we confirm that the transfer succeeded? So start by deciding how you confirm that every card was copied. Comparing the number of files on the card with the number of in the destination folder is a useful first check. It's not complete, but it's a first check. If those numbers are identical, then great, you at least have all the images there. If you created more than one file type, such as RAW, JPEG, video, audio, include each type in the comparison. Next, decide how you will confirm that files are readable. Opening photographs from the beginning, middle, and end of the card can reveal missing groups of images or files that fail to display. So I don't recommend you try to open every single one of them. And by the way, if you're looking at the thumbnails of the images, it is very possible for the thumbnail not to show you that it's corrupted. Now, it can show you that it's corrupted also, but it is possible that you can't tell in that thumbnail. So do some spot checking. Check some from the beginning, check some from the middle, check some from the end of that job. Some transfer applications use a checksum, a digital fingerprint created from the file's data. When the source and copied file have matching checksums, the software has stronger evidence that the data arrived unchanged. So it's checking your work for you. Choose the checks that your procedure requires. A practical verification checklist might include the files from every used card are present in the job folder. The source and destination file counts match. Every expected file is present. Selected files from across each card open correctly. If you're using it, checksum verification is complete when the job requires it. Place this checklist directly into your image ingestion workflow. Now, again, you may call it something else, but it is an image ingestion workflow. That's its formal name. Verification is complete when every required item has been confirmed. All right, enough about that. Chapter 5. Now that we've done all that, we need to back it up. Having just one working copy is not enough. So protect the work beyond the working copy. Decide how the files will be protected beyond the primary working copy. So it means creating another folder on the same physical drive won't accomplish this. It's got to be separate from what you're doing. So not 2 times on the same hard drive. No. If that drive were to fail, both of the folders would disappear together. You could use the 3-2-1 backup approach. I don't know if you've heard of this, but this gives you a useful starting point. It might be perfect for what you do. It might not be at all. Maybe you need to tweak it. But the 3-2-1 backup approach means that you keep at least 3 copies of the files, place them on at least 2 independent systems or types of media, and keep at least 1 copy in another physical location. So that's the 3-2-1. 3 copies of the files, place them on 2 independent systems, and have at least 1 copy in another physical location. 3-2-1. Map those 3 copies from or for your business. So during ingestion, they might be the file still on the memory card, which is not what I recommend. The primary working copy on your computer, external drive or NAS, a second copy on another device or an offsite backup service. Consider the memory card as temporary is what I recommend. Your backup design should protect the photographs if the working drive fails, the equipment is stolen, or the studio is damaged. Stuff can happen. A NAS can provide useful protection when it's configured to tolerate the failure of an individual drive. The NAS itself can still fail or be affected by deletion, theft, fire, physical damage, malware. By the way, I'm sure you know what malware is, but just in case, it's harmful software that can damage your files or interfere with the system. And it doesn't just affect the hard drive on your computer, it can affect your NAS as well. So decide what will protect the files if the entire NAS becomes unavailable. NAS is fantastic. I highly recommend it. I've been using one forever, but it has its limitations. You also need to know whether a service synchronizes files or backs them up. Synchronization is built into services such as OneDrive, Google Drive for desktop, and cloud-based Adobe Lightroom. It keeps files or information matching across locations and devices. This is convenient, but an accidental deletion can also be repeated throughout the synchronized system. So keep that in mind. Lightroom Classic works differently. Photographs synced from Lightroom Classic use smart previews rather than creating another full copy of the original files. That synchronization does not back up your original photographs. A backup service is designed to preserve another recoverable copy, often with a way to restore an earlier version. So before choosing one, find out which folder it protects, how long deleted files and previews remain available. The deleted files, you're going to be considering that. It may be something you tweak later because you decide you need a little more time or you need a little less time, but you're going to be thinking that through over time. You want to know how it reports errors? You want to know how it would restore the images on for a job? Choose the systems that will hold each copy and then add them to your procedure manual. Where will the primary working copy live? For me, it's my NAS. Where will the second protected copy live? The cloud? It's a good choice. Which copy will be stored off site? Now, a lot of people do that with external hard drives. However, they leave the hard drives in the same vicinity as the NAS. Okay, that doesn't really solve this particular problem. So, will the backup copy begin automatically? Are you going to set this up as an automation? How will you confirm when it's complete? How often will you test a restore? Automation reduces the number of actions you must remember, but the procedure still needs a visible confirmation that the backup succeeded. So define what that confirmation looks like before you rely on it. Chapter 6. This is when you clear the card. And for a lot of people, this might be a stressful part of it, but not if you've built a system that we're talking about. So let the system make the decision. The procedure now needs a firm rule for clearing the memory card. Set that rule while building the system so you will not have to decide whether a card feels safe to format. Choose the conditions that must be satisfied based on the procedure that you've built. The card becomes eligible to be cleared when every card used for the job has been copied to the correct destination. The required verification checks have been completed. The additional protected copy has been created. Your offsite or cloud backup has been completed when your procedure requires it. The job status has been recorded as protected. You have a list of all the things you do for a job so that you can check them off so you don't get lost. You want to automate as much as you can, but you start that off by being very thorough in all the steps you go through. You go through a lot of steps. There's a lot of them you don't really think about, but if you were having to describe it to someone else, you'd have to think about it. That's how detailed I want you to be. Now, some types of work might require additional protection. In a lot of businesses, that's not the case, but there are instances where there may be a different thing that you do for certain types of work. So define those categories and their requirements when you're building the procedure. And obviously, I want you to add them now rather than creating exceptions while you're trying to prepare cards for the next session. I want you to have a system that you can count on, you can rely on. So decide how the card will move from awaiting ingestion to ready for use, all those steps in between. Your card status system should make that change visible. Format the card in the camera that you're intending to use the card in, and make sure you follow the guidance for your equipment. For mine, I press 2 little red buttons and it formats my card. Of course, the only time I do that is after I haven't backed up and I know for sure that it is backed up in multiple places. Then I delete the card. It's got nothing on it. It's fresh. It's new. Write the exact clearing rule into your image ingestion workflow. When every condition has been met, the procedure authorizes the next action. So you're not having to think about it. It's just the next step. The photographs no longer depend on the memory card, and the card can now return to service. Next chapter, chapter 7. This is build a workflow you will follow. because sometimes we don't do what we say we're going to do. So build a workflow that you feel you're going to be able to follow. You have now made the decisions needed to assemble the image ingestion workflow. Bring them together in whatever order that they're going to be performed. So first, account for every used card and place it, every card that you used, and place it in the designated protected location. So this is pre-ingest. 2, create the job folder using the established location and naming formula. So again, for me, PF, if it's a family portrait, if it's a bridal portrait session, it's PB, portrait of a bride. So yeah, it's pretty simple, but that's how I started off. And then the name of that person, if it's a company, then I put the company name, and then date. So create the job folder using the established location and naming formula. Copy every card using the documented transfer or import settings if you're doing Lightroom. Number 4, complete the verification checklist. We want to make sure everything's there and that it hasn't been corrupted. Number 6, record the job as protected. It's done. You can check that box off. And number 7, clear the cards and return them to ready status. Now, I also want you to add any equipment-specific types that are required by your camera, your computer or your NAS, your Lightroom setup or your backup service. Any specific steps that are required by those. Write the procedure with enough detail that you can follow it when you're really tired or when you're interrupted or when you're handling too many jobs at once. Someone assisting you should also be able to understand what's been completed and what comes next. It should be clear enough for someone to read the instructions and do it for you. Give each job visible status that matches the procedure of capture, copy, verify, backup, clear the card. Those 5 steps: capture, copy, verify, backup, clear the card. Now, that's the simplest way to say it. I just spent the last 30 minutes being specific about it. The general one is capture, copy, verify, backup, clear the card. The status can be recorded in your studio management software if you have that. It's also called CRM, but this is more specific to photographers, or maybe a task system, or the job folder. Maybe you've got a printed log where you actually check off boxes. That's how we used to do it. Choose one location and include it in the procedure. And then place the completed image ingestion workflow in your procedure manual under image file management. Keep a working checklist near the computer where the ingestion takes place. The manual preserves the complete procedure, while the checklist helps you perform it without having to remember any step. Now, I want you to review the procedure when equipment or software or storage capacity or job volume changes. The system can grow with the business while the basic sequence remains familiar. This is the last chapter, chapter 8. This is recovery, retention, and client expectations. Image ingestion protects the photographs at the beginning of their working life. You also need a retention policy that determines how long you will keep the original captures, the working files, and the finished photographs after delivery. So choose a retention period that you can support, because it costs money to keep all of your images. Consider your storage capacity, the kind of work you accept, the promises in your agreement, and the possibility that a client may request another photograph later. You may keep files beyond the stated period as a courtesy, but avoid creating expectation of permanent storage unless you are prepared to provide it. Decide what clients need to know. Your agreement should state the retention period and explain their responsibility for digital files they receive. When it comes to physical photographs and albums and wall art, give the work a form that does not depend on continued access to a drive, an account, or online gallery. Your written procedures also need a recovery response. If files appear to be missing, stop writing new data to that card or drive. Identify every location connected to the job, including camera cards, computers, import folders, catalogs, external drives, the NAS, cloud accounts, delivery galleries, export folders, and deleted items. Contact any second photographer or assistant who may have received copies. Decide in advance when you will contact a professional recovery service, because improvised recovery attempts can override the data that's on your cards. And otherwise, it would have been recoverable. Happens. I have had a corrupted file on a card before, and I did hire a professional recovery service, and they were able to solve my problem. I want you to create a client communication standard for a confirmed loss as well. How are you going to convey this? First, determine what exists and what is missing. Then communicate honestly. Take responsibility for the care of the work, provide what remains available, and determine an appropriate remedy based on the circumstances of your agreement. The client needs accurate information. The client needs professional care. And the retention policy should be in your procedure manual. Retention policy. So it needs to be added to your client agreement in your procedure manual. Place the recovery response under image file management beside the image ingestion workflow. If a problem occurs, you will have a responsible course of action rather than creating one when you and your client are under stress. Let me bring up the closing thoughts before I share with you the upcoming shows. So, Lens Legends, for a little while, an entire wedding may exist on a few memory cards. A family's expressions, the relationships between generations, and photographs that may become more valuable over the years are waiting for you to carry them to a dependable system. That work follows a clear path. Capture, copy, verify, backup, and clear the card. Your equipment and software may differ from another photographer's, so the standard is knowing where the photographs are, confirming that they arrived intact, and protecting them beyond a single device or location. Now, clients are just not going to see this part of your service. They experience its value when the photographs they trusted you to create are complete, when they're available and ready to become what you planned together. Professional responsibility includes the work that receives little attention because it went exactly as it should. The session ends, but you care for the photographs. Well, your care for the photographs still has quite a journey ahead. A clear process lets you prepare the card for its next assignment and move forward with confidence. I want to tell you about the upcoming shows. Now, you know the Portrait Profit Show comes to you every single Monday. So let's talk about what's coming. In 1 week from today, and that is, and I'll put this up on the screen, it is July 27th. Is that big enough to see? I can make it just a bit bigger. There we go. Why beautiful images don't bring inquiries. This is episode number 281 next week. Beautiful portrait images get people to pause, but how you convey what you do helps clients understand why they should hire you. We'll look at how to convey the meaning, care, experience, and value behind your custom portrait photography so that the right clients have a strong reason to inquire. And that is 1 week from today. A week after that will be in August already. So that's August 3rd. And this is called the water method. You need income now, not some vague directive to market more. You need a practical path you can act on today. The water method is a same day action plan for creating one real client conversation by going where movement is already most likely. It's simple and it works. Put it on your calendar, August 3rd at noon. And then I'm going to skip one and take us to August 17th and tell you just one more. On August 17th at noon, this is the referral mistake that confuses clients. Referrals are a wonderful part of building a photography business, but they can also create confusion when someone else explains what you do incorrectly. We'll talk about the referral mistake that creates confused clients, and you'll learn how to protect the client experience, educate referral sources, set healthy boundaries, and create a simple referral guide so people can recommend you accurately and professionally. All of these lessons that I bring to you are based on something that I've experienced or seen someone else experience. So I'll tell you the story of why I came up with the referral mistake that causes or that confuses clients, because it's an interesting one. I guess I could tease you on it just a little bit more. It was a referral that told a friend of theirs, and this is one of my clients, so this wasn't me. Actually, it happened to me as well, but I'm thinking of another client. All right, so uh, this nice person was referring this photographer, telling them that telling the prospect that this photographer is fantastic and that they would give them 50% off if they asked. No, they won't. But that person actually did get 50% off, but it was because it was a family member. But this person just thought that all you have to do is ask. That wasn't the variable that caused it. And so that caused it caused a problem. We'll talk about that example and others. Now, add these free lessons to your calendar now. You're going to forget. You've got a lot of things going on in your life. You're busy, you're wonderful, you're amazing, but there's way too much going on to remember it all. So put these free lessons Mondays at noon on your calendar. Lens Legends, I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of the Portrait Profit Show. Before your next session, write down what happens to your image files after you finish photographing. Define where they go, how you verify them once they've gone there, where the independent backup lives, and what must be confirmed before you format the card. Give yourself a process you can follow and a standard you can trust. Thank you, Lens Legends, for your time and attention here today. And thank you for the hard work that you put into building a business that really makes a difference, even though sometimes you don't see it. But it is making a difference. I'll see you next Monday. For Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, I'm Jim Landers, and this is the Portrait Profit Show. I look forward to watching you grow. Bye for now.